Welcome to this edition of Live with Omar Moore. It's late night live here on the West Coast of the United States. Thank you very much indeed for joining. Hello there to Vivian. And look, it's a great pleasure to have you all here, whether you're watching this live or whether you're watching this, as I said, at another time, because it is very, very late on the East Coast of the United States. So I expect people are probably sleeping by now and getting ready for work, once they do wake up in a few hours' time. But the reason I wanted to do this tonight is simply this. Obviously, tonight, what we have seen is in Texas a very interesting but not surprising predicament. And Jasmine Crockett tonight, who currently is trailing by 6 points to James Tallarico, made an announcement. Actually, she made the announcement quite a few hours ago that there would not be any conclusive result on her race with James Tallarico in the primary tonight. That's what she said a few hours ago. Now, let me just explain to you in a few quick sentences why we are presently where we are with this Democratic Senate primary in Texas. Earlier today, the Republican Party in both Dallas County and Williamson County in Texas, those two counties are two of the 254 counties in Texas. Now, those two counties, Dallas and Williamson, are the two counties where each of the two Democratic candidates are from. The home county for Jasmine Crockett is Dallas County. And the home county for James Tallarico is Williamson County. Now, Dallas County had a lot of problems with voting today. And the Republican Party of Dallas County and Williamson County, all of a sudden today or the day before, decided they did not want a joint primary to be held for the Democratic primary. And that means this. In a joint primary election, any voter in Texas can vote anywhere within their county. That's what a joint primary election is. So if you live in Dallas County, you don't have to vote at one precinct. You can vote anywhere in the entire county of Dallas County if you had a joint primary election, which is what Republicans had allowed for over a decade. You could vote anywhere in your county. It didn't have to be at your home address. It could be anywhere in your county in a joint primary election. But they didn't do that, these two Republican parties in Williamson County and Dallas County. They did not do that for this primary, for the Democrats. They didn't do it. So what that meant is that there were a lot of people who voted in Dallas County and a few who voted in Williamson County who were told that they were in the wrong precinct because they thought that they could vote anywhere in their counties because that had been the practice. But because the Republicans at last minute in both of those counties said, no, we're going to abandon the joint primary election, that meant that all of these voters who were turning up anywhere in Dallas County, especially, were being told, nope, you can't vote here. You have to go to the precinct that you're specifically tied to with your address. And that caused lots of confusion throughout the day. Hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of voters in Dallas County were being turned away. Now, let me explain this as well. This happened also in Williamson County, but in only 2 polling locations there, according to NBC News. But it happened for the entire county of Dallas. People were being turned away in the whole county. To give you an idea of why that is very significant, is that the population of Dallas County is over 2 million people. 2.6 million to be precise. And that is Jasmine Crockett's home county. I'll give you some more information about these counties in a moment. 2.6 million people populate Dallas County. In Williamson County, which is the home county for James Tallarico, there are approximately 700,000 people. And in only 2 locations were there these things happening with the confusion. The other important thing to think about is this. In Jasmine Crockett's home county of Dallas County, the population is 44% Latino, 26% white, and 22% Black. Jasmine Crockett's primary voters in 1, 2, 3 order are as follows. And she said this right out of her mouth herself last week. Her top 3 voting categories, demographics: number 1, Black women; number 2, Black men; number 3, Latinas. In a voting county, her county, where 44% of that county is Latino, that's significant. Now, in Williamson County, the home county of James Tallarico, where the population is significantly lower, the demographics are as follows: 53% white, 24% Latino, and around 20% Black. Another thing to consider: the average amount of money made by people in Dallas County, $77,000. Average amount of money made by people in Williamson County, the whiter county, over $110,000. I say all this because it's very clear that what Texas has done has disenfranchised a lot of voters in Dallas County, mostly poorer, Latino, and Black, and poor white voters, versus Williamson County, more white, more affluent, okay? And James Tallarico did not file a lawsuit here. Now, he released a statement earlier today saying that he's distressed that there has been this problem in these counties, but he never made any legal challenges. Jasmine Crockett did. The population is much bigger, much larger. Dallas County is the second largest county in Texas. Okay? Got to keep that in mind. And Harris County, which is not involved here, but it's still her voting block. Harris County is the largest county in all of Texas. Over 4 million people in that county, mostly Latino. And if you look at the results right now, according to the Associated Press, this may have changed in the last 10 minutes, but Jasmine Crockett was winning handily in Harris County, winning handily. And there was only 62% of the vote counted right there. In Dallas County, her home county, she was winning handily, but there was only around 68% of the vote counted there. Long way to go. Long way to go. Another thing to consider, which I've not yet told you, the Associated Press has not called this race for Tallarico. And if you're watching corporate news media, or even if you're watching C-SPAN, which is not corporate news media, they are not properly explaining to you why it is these results aren't in. And you've got pundits saying, oh, well, it looks like Tallarico's going to win. Well, just because right now he's up by about 6 points, we are far from over in terms of determining what is what. Here's some other information for you that I've not yet told you. Earlier today in Texas, a judge, because of all this confusion that was caused by these Republicans, saying that there's not going to be a joint primary election, You're now going to have to go to your specific precinct. You can't vote anywhere in your county, which means if you're coming from work and you could vote at a polling station near your workplace, oh, no, 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 we can't do that. You've got to go exactly back home, wherever your specific precinct is, and vote there. That's what that was today. Confused a lot of people. All right. Dallas, exactly. Vegan intersectional. This is what I've been talking about. And vegan intersectional, you may have come in late, maybe not. But that's exactly what I've told everybody. There were hundreds and hundreds of voters. These are all facts. You reported in local Texas news. Local news in Texas and Houston, that's where I'm getting a lot of this from, and also from the Crockett campaign. A lot of people got turned around and were told they could not vote in Dallas County. There were people in Dallas County who were being directed to the Republican primary instead. And some people didn't realize that, and they voted in the Republican primary instead. I mean, it was a mess. It was a mess. Now, here's the other thing. A judge today ordered, because of the confusion, this is hours and hours ago now. This is about 6 hours ago. A judge today ordered that because of the confusion in Dallas County, the polling would have to be opened for 2 more hours beyond the closing time of 7 p.m. Central Time, which meant because of all the confusion in Dallas County, people had until 9 o'clock p.m. Central Time on Tuesday night to vote. Now, notice the judges did not rule for Williamson County because the problem was not nearly as bad in Williamson County, where Tallarico, his home county, is, where it's whiter, more affluent. There was no court challenge or anything, and there was no ruling by a judge because it wasn't something that was a major problem in Williamson County. The major problem was in Dallas County. A judge there said you can open the polls for 2 more hours until 9 p.m. Central Time on Tuesday. Here's the issue, though. Within an hour of that ruling, the Texas Supreme Court said, nope, you cannot vote until 9 o'clock p.m. Central. You have to shut down the voting at 7 p.m. Central Time. Any votes after 7 p.m. Central Time cannot be counted. You have to separate those votes out. Now, how on earth, if you've been standing in that line, how on earth are the clerks in Texas, in Dallas County, going to be able to differentiate between whose vote was recorded at 7 o'clock or 7:10 or 8? And by the way, there were long lines in Dallas County. Number one. Number two, as long as you are in line at 7 p.m. Central Time, even if you're still on that line at 7:30, you could vote as long as you got there at 7 p.m. Central Time on the line and no later. So people conceivably in Dallas County could have been on that line by 7 p.m. Central Time on Tuesday, but literally did not get to vote until maybe 8 or 9 o'clock Central Time. And so the Texas Supreme Court said any vote that's come in after 7 o'clock is to be separated. Well, how can they do that? If people were legally there by not 7 p.m. Central Time, it doesn't matter when they get to vote because the rule is as long as you're on that line by 7 p.m. Central Time, you're okay to vote. So the Texas Supreme Court has absolutely thrown a curveball, and we're a few weeks away from baseball season, but the Texas Supreme Court has really gone into spring training mode, forgive me for my baseball metaphor, and thrown the wildest ass curveball you can ever throw. It's just absolutely insane, but Texas has been doing this for decades and decades and decades to black voters, to brown voters, and for that matter, poor white voters. Disenfranchising black voters. They've done this forever in Texas. They've had, and you study the history of this, they had white primaries. They explicitly called them white primaries because Texas would literally allow only white people to vote. No kidding. The home of the poll tax. I mean, this is Texas politics. It's racist. It's classist. And most of all, racist. Okay. I mean, this is what Texas does. And so you really do have to understand that what if you're watching corporate news media, no doubt, I will bet you they are not sufficiently explaining to you just how dirty this is. It's dirty. How on earth are clerks at Dallas County's elections board going to figure out how to separate votes after 7 p.m. Central Time when people who got online at 7 p.m. Central Time were allowed to vote? And the line might be long, and these lines were very long in Dallas County tonight and today anyway. Yeah, no, yesterday now, if you're looking at Central Time. The lines were long. You had record turnouts. You had early voting turnout that was a record in Texas for a Democratic primary. You had all kinds of turnouts that were records. You had long lines today on Tuesday in Dallas County. You had long lines in a lot of counties. But the most populous counties in Texas feature predominantly Latino populations. Texas is now over 60% Latino and Black. But but 60% of the people who vote are white. Now that does not square. And why does that not square? Because of voter suppression, because of dirty tactics like this, where the Republican Party in both Dallas County and in Williamson County all of a sudden decided to change the rule so it makes it harder for the average Black and brown person especially to vote. And when you're talking about Dallas County being the second most populous county in the entire state of Texas, a county that has 44% Latino, 26% white, and 24 or 22% Black people in it, and a median income of around $75,000 a year versus Williamson County, a mostly white county with over 100,000. That's the home of Tallarico. Hey, it's pretty obvious what's going on here. And the reason why you haven't seen James Tallarico give a speech yet is because he is fully aware of the issues that are going on. This is dirty ass, racist ass politics by the Texas Republicans. And it is. That's why you haven't got a result yet. Now, Jasmine Crockett made her statement. She made a couple of statements. She made one on social media earlier today. This evening, she made a statement before her assembled victory, what was hopefully to be a victory party speech. But she made a statement. This is hours ago now. And on C-SPAN, they played it. I'm going to put the full audio up in the Politicrat podcast that I do, which I'm going to record shortly. But I want to spend a few more minutes explaining these things because I really do want to explain to you just how dirty this is. She said tonight, Crockett did, and she said all of these things that I'm saying, that we won't know tonight what the result is, and God knows how long it will be before we know. We may not know until sometime late on Wednesday or during the middle of the day, but there needs to be more court challenges. But I don't know that's going to happen. Texas obviously is a very heavily Republican-controlled state. It's no secret that Texas Republicans would rather prefer Tallarico to advance to the next round, if you will. Now, the rule is if you do not acquire more, if neither candidate requires or no candidate in a race acquires 50% or more of the vote, then there's going to be a runoff. Well, there isn't going to be a runoff so far, at least, with Jasmine Crockett and James Tallarico, because Tallarico at the moment, with around 70% of the vote in or thereabouts, is at 51 point so and so percent, 52%. Crockett is at 46 and change. Those numbers are going to change by the time you watch this. Those numbers might have changed more. And again, according to the Associated Press, there's still a lot of vote to be counted. Harris County is only about 60 some odd percent of their vote in. And there's only about, for Dallas County, where Jasmine Crockett resides, there's only around 65, 70% of that vote in. And you still have to factor in, any votes that the initial judge had factored in. Remember, the initial judge said, you can extend till 9 p.m. Central Time. Then within an hour or so of that, the Texas Supreme Court said, no, you can't. And they temporarily blocked it. I don't know what temporary blocking means in this case. I mean, I know what the word temporary means, but I don't know how you can temporarily block people from voting when time is of the essence. Because if you stop the vote for any period of time in the entirety of Dallas County, forget it. I mean, people are going to turn away. It's a voter suppression tactic. So understand, a fellow viewer, thank you very much for joining here. Please subscribe. Please hit the hearts. Please subscribe to my Substack here. Thank you very much for staying up late with me. I'll keep you for another 5 or 6 minutes. Obviously, I know that some of you are in a different part of the country or the world, so it's probably very late for you where you are. I'm here in California, so for me, it's not so late. Thank you so much for hitting the hearts. Please continue to do that. Thank you, and please be a subscriber to my podcast and be a subscriber to this very Substack you're watching, and please restack this as well. And also consider becoming a paid subscriber as well, please. You get a lot of different goodies. I do giveaways. I give away films. I give away books. I've got a number of books here to give away. I've got multiple copies of Vice President Harris's book I give away to paid subscribers only. I've got copies of White Fear, Roland Martin's book, to give away as well, and numerous other books, including Virginia Giuffre's book as well, Nobody's Perfect. Excuse me, Nobody's Girl. Nobody's Perfect. Nobody's Girl. And a number of other things, including lots of other goodies. So it does pay to be a paid subscriber. Plus, you get free newsletters that come into you as well, and extras that you get as well that you probably won't get anywhere else. So please consider becoming a paid subscriber. Thank you very much for that. Vivian, you're most welcome, Vivian. A couple of things to consider here as well. Okay. Again, as you know, as I've said, Texas has had a long history of suppressing black votes, a long history of doing this, a long history of making it difficult for Latinos to vote. And granted, the Latino vote is probably going to be split again here. Many Latinas have been going for, in the early voting, many Latinas mostly have been going to Jasmine Crockett, just like most Latinas went for Vice President Harris in 2024. That trend has continued with this state race that features Jasmine Crockett and James Tallarico. James Tallarico is winning with a number of, mostly with white voters at this point. Through early voting, we're seeing that. But still, this is not over. The point that I really want to make is the pundits on some of these networks, Tallarico. Listen, this is not over yet. Tallarico's in a good position at the moment. There's no question about that. But this is not over. And I don't know for the life of me how on earth Dallas County is going to be able to differentiate these votes. I really, really don't know how they're going to do that. Does anybody? I mean, this is really exactly the same thing as poll taxes. What the Texas Supreme Court essentially did yesterday, because now it's Wednesday in Texas, and it's Wednesday probably where many of you are watching this from, as I record it live. But what the Texas Supreme Court has essentially done is to ratify poll taxing. asking the Dallas County Elections Board and the clerks there to separate out which votes came in after 7 p.m. Central Time and which came in before. That is like literally asking a black person to guess the number of jelly beans in a jelly jar. That is what happened in poll taxes all across the South, where black people were being asked to count the number of bubbles in a bar of soap. True story. Black people were being asked, how many jelly beans are there in this jar? Seriously, these things really happened. Black people were being asked, name for me all of the district judges in the state of Alabama. If they were in Alabama voting, they would be asked those kinds of questions. And if they got them right, then there'd be another question asked of them, and then another one. I mean, this is in this country. The racism is through the roof, and this is a poll tax. What the Texas Supreme Court did tonight, or I should say what they did last night on Tuesday in Texas, is the equivalent of a poll tax. It's the equivalent. And this is true of a lot of these states. Exactly. Yeah. A lot of these states are racist, even beyond the South. But particularly when it comes to voting, this is why I say to people, when people say, oh, voting doesn't matter, they have to stop saying that. Because if your vote didn't matter and if voting didn't matter, you wouldn't have these Texas Republicans doing what they're doing. You wouldn't have the Texas Republicans in Williamson County and in Dallas County changing the rules and saying, no, you can't have a joint primary election. So voting matters, and voting is critical. And I just hope by now that people have learned that lesson, that voting really does matter. And this nonsense that, oh, my vote doesn't count. No, your vote counts. It's that the Republicans want to steal your vote. The Republicans want to make it harder for you to vote. This is obvious. The Save America Act, what do people think that is? It's a voter suppression tool. That's what it is. And I don't think that's going to succeed, by the way. Texas has long done this, and they're not the only state, but they've long done this. There's no online voter registration in Texas. None. Early voting is curtailed and shortened in Texas. And the other thing I want to say about this before I do say goodbye is that people really need to understand that early voting is crucial. Because during early voting, people were able to vote anywhere in their county. It was only on election day that these Republicans changed the rules. Oh, yeah. I know people in Texas who voted in any part of the county they wanted to, because that's what they've been doing for a decade. And they voted early. All of a sudden, though, somehow Dallas County and Williamson County, the Republicans in those two counties said, oh, no, we're not allowing you to do that now. This is totally about suppressing black and brown votes. That's what it's about. It is so important. How many times have I said, vote early? How many times have I said, check your voter registration? How many times have I said, check your voter registration twice a month, at least? I've said this not just about Texas. I've said this in any state, including California. Check your voter registration at least twice a month, if not more. These Republicans are trying to steal this thing. They're going for the gusto. You've seen what happened in Texas last year with the racist gerrymandering. Donald Trump wanted to have 5 extra seats, so he got Harmeet Dillon out of the Civil Rights Division of the DOJ to write a letter dated July the 7th, 2025, to who? The governor of Texas, Greg Abbott, and that corrupt attorney general who is going to be in a runoff, Ken Paxton. And in that letter, at the end of that letter, Harmeet Dillon, the civil rights head of the DOJ, head of the Civil Rights Division there, threatened to sue Texas if they did not carry out this policy of racist gerrymandering. Now, if your vote didn't count and if your vote didn't matter, Donald Trump and Harmeet Dillon would not have to be doing what they're doing. And these Texas Republicans last year wouldn't have done their racist gerrymander. And other states across this country that are Republican controlled would not be doing racist gerrymanders. Because of that racist gerrymandering in Texas, Al Green, the veteran congressman, is losing currently in a primary in Texas to his opponent. They're going to have a runoff most likely. And the runoff will be sometime in May, I think May 26th. On the Republican side, Ken Paxton is in a runoff with John Cornyn. That's going to be May 26th, also in Texas. So understand what's happening. There were no problems with Republican primaries tonight. There were no issues with voting in Republican primaries tonight in Texas. No problems. All the Republican voters were able to vote. There were no court challenges by Republicans. There were no court challenges by Republican candidates. You didn't hear John Cornyn tonight complaining that in the state of Texas in certain counties, including his home county, there was some voting irregularity. You never heard that on the Republican side. John Cornyn and the Republicans, they don't have any problem voting. The lines are long in Texas when it comes to black and brown voters. They take away voting machines in the most populous counties. This happens all over the country. Happens in Wisconsin, happens in Georgia, happens in South Carolina, happens in Texas. I can go through all the states. This is not new. So in Dallas County tonight, or last night rather, in some places they had fewer voting machines. The Secretary of State in Texas, a Republican, who happens to be, no, she's not married to an existing politician, the best that I can remember. That would be Louisiana, where the Texas Secretary of State of Louisiana happens to be married to the governor, Jeff Landry. In Texas, however, that is not the case as far as I know. She's not married, the Secretary of State, to some prominent Republican politician. But the Secretary of State, there were reports tonight and last night in Texas that the Secretary of State of Texas's website gave misleading information to people, that their calling into them gave misleading information. The Texas Democrats have made it very, very clear about this gerrymandering, about this voter suppression. They were the ones that filed an initial lawsuit, which got the judge initially in Texas to hold open the voting for 2 more hours. Then this Texas Supreme Court came in and said, no, you got to stop it. I mean, this is a whole mess. And if this went to the Supreme Court, the U.S. Supreme Court, that is, which way this would end up going, right? You know where it's going to go. So this is a very, very problematic thing. And again, the reason why you've probably not seen, and I don't think while I've been talking, he's been giving a speech. The reason why you haven't seen any victory declared by James Tallarico is because he's well aware. He is well aware of the situation. He's well aware of the fact that the dirty was done in Dallas County tonight and last night. The dirty was done by these Republicans in Dallas County who said, nope, you're not having a joint primary election. So all of these people who were coming from work in Dallas County had to go to their specific precinct. And some people they may have a long way to travel. They may travel and they may work from some county really far away. They may, it's just tremendously inconvenient. Tallarico vegan, essentially she did wink at him. I watched that segment and I can't stand Bill Maher, but I only watched that segment on YouTube, and only because I wanted to see for myself. I know Crockett sent emails out, and I know because I got one of them saying that she endorsed him. She didn't come out and actually say the word endorse, but you could tell if you watch that particular situation with Bill Maher, and I cannot stand him, and same with you, Vegan. I know we both can't stand him, and I'm sure we're not the only two people here who have the same feeling about Bill Maher. But in that segment that I watched, Boba was very chummy with him and seemed very comfortable. Um, and she agreed with a number of things that he was saying. She didn't seem to have any kind of issue with Tallarico and what he was saying. So she certainly didn't come out and endorse Jasmine Crockett, put it that way. So I would say, Vegan, that was a tacit, shall we say, a tacit endorsement by Lauren Boebert, who, of course, is in Colorado, moved to a different district in Colorado because she knew she was going to get her butt kicked. So she decided to move to a different district to get reelected, and it succeeded. So there we go. And M. Hope also cannot stand Bill Maher, and I know there's and there's a number of us a lot of us who can't. But that's what that was, Vegan, in terms of Lauren Boebert. The other thing to consider is it's going to be very interesting to see what the outcome is. The question I wonder, and I would love to ask the legal team of Jasmine Crockett this: will they just consider a re-vote of Dallas County? I don't know if they can really do that. I don't know if that could happen. First of all, if there was going to be any revote or recount or anything like that, obviously the margin would have to be a lot closer than it presently is. And because all of Dallas County and all of Harris County have not been counted, and those two counties are the two largest, most populous counties in the state of Texas. Remember, Texas has 254 counties. Because those two counties are still far from being decided, and Harris County, certainly the biggest county with over 4 million people in it, Dallas County around 2.6 million people in it, thereabouts. Over 2 million, certainly in Dallas County, which is the home county for Jasmine Crockett. There's still a lot of votes to be counted. And then when you factor in this absurd Supreme Court of Texas decision to separate out votes that came in that voted after 7 p.m., how do you do that? But that, again, as I said earlier, that's the nonsense, that's the BS. It just does not make any sense at all. So this thing isn't over. If this were a lot closer, you'd be talking about a recount. Obviously, it's going to be within, I think, 0.5% or 0.2%. I forget what the exact rule is in Texas for a recount to be automatically launched. But I think I can see some more possible legal challenges from the Texas Democratic Party and from the Crockett campaign. I can see that. Now, the Tallarico campaign obviously is not going to want to be challenging anything because right now they're in the catbird seat. But nothing is final yet. Nothing is final yet. So even though James Tallarico is in a 5 or 6 point lead at the moment, at least at last I saw, let me tell you, this is far from over. I would love to see what the legal challenges are. It would be very interesting to me to see what the Crockett team does now, because a lawsuit was filed. I don't know if there'll be any more lawsuits filed because I listen. I'll tell you straight up. I'm a Crockett person. I'm here in California, so obviously I cannot vote, but I have been very active, and I'm far from the only one who has on social media telling people in Texas to vote for Crockett. I've been I've donated to her. I've been very enthusiastic about her, participated in phone banks for her. So listen, I'm going to be open and transparent about that. I want James Tallarico, I want Jasmine Crockett, pardon me. I want Jasmine Crockett to succeed in this Senate race. So I will make that very clear to everyone who's watching this. And I mean, lest there be any doubt about that in the interest of full disclosure and transparency. So I would think that there should probably be more legal challenges. And the real question I have tonight, before I do say goodbye to you all, and thank you for hitting the hearts, please do subscribe to this Substack that you're watching. If you like what you see, please do subscribe. And also, please consider becoming a paid subscriber as well. That'd be greatly appreciated as well. Spread the word about this Substack. But one of the things I really think should be done is having the vote open just for Dallas County. I totally think what should happen is Dallas County should be redone. Remember in the year 2000, complete different election, but the point I'm trying to make is this. In the year 2000, you had Bush v. Gore, and Al Gore contested Florida, certainly contested parts of Florida. And he asked for, I think, 3 counties to be redone or to be recounted. And one of them was Miami-Dade County, which was likely to go in 2000 at least, 26 years ago, was likely to go his way. The George Bush campaign filed a challenge, and they went back and forth up the line all the way to the U.S. Supreme Court, where, of course, a lot of his dad, Poppy Bush's friends were, like Bill Rehnquist. Um, and the Supreme Court told the state of Florida to stop counting votes, stop counting in Miami-Dade County, stop counting in these other 2 counties, which handed the election to George W. Bush. George W. Bush, literally in his legal brief, was saying that, oh my goodness me, if they keep counting in Miami-Dade, my campaign would be irreparably harmed. Well, dude, yeah. I mean, that's why they count these things. It's called an election. And so the US Supreme Court, instead of saying, well, in the interests of free and fair elections, the state and states' rights and the 10th Amendment reserve powers to the states, Constitution, you should be allowed to continue counting the votes. No, the Supreme Court, surprise, surprise, said, no, we're not going to allow states' rights. You know, the conservatives and the Republicans who love states' rights when it works for them, states' rights, you know what that meant back in the day. But the Republicans in 2000 who loved states' rights, all of a sudden, the Republican controlled Supreme Court back then in 2000 said, no, stop counting. And that's exactly what happened. That's how Bush ended up becoming president of the United States in 2000. That case was decided, the announcement of that decision was December the 13th of 2000, either December the 12th or December 13th of 2000. You can look that up. Bush v. Gore. And in the dissent, Ruth Bader Ginsburg made a really famous dissent there. She absolutely ripped the decision. Violation of equal protection, of the 14th Amendment, all kinds of things. So the reason why I bring up Bush v. Gore is because Al Gore challenged, asked for recounts in these counties. And a study was done, by the way, after the Supreme Court decision, and that study came out about a year after Bush was already in office, that said under every scenario, any recount, if the full recount was allowed to be done, Gore would have won the state of Florida, period. The whole state, not just Miami-Dade, the whole state. And had Al Gore asked for a recount of the whole state, he would have won, not just Miami-Dade, not just the other 2 counties. Numerous studies showed this back in 2001, in 2000. So I use the example of Al Gore and apply it in a statewide race to Jasmine Crockett. And I really, really wonder if her legal team is considering a petition to the court to somehow either recount Dallas County. Because really, when you really think about it, the Texas Supreme Court yesterday saying that the vote has got to stop and you've got to separate out the votes that came in after 7 p.m. Central Time, people who came on that line after that time. Literally, that is essentially what the Texas Supreme Court is doing. They're essentially doing a recount, because they're actually telling the Dallas County clerks to sift out the votes that came in after 7 p.m. Central Time. People who stood on that line after 7 p.m. Central Time, after an initial judge previously said, you can vote until 9 p.m. Central. How are the clerks going to know who came in after 7 p.m.? As I said earlier, how are they going to know that? So the Texas Supreme Court is essentially doing a recount. They're asking the Dallas County clerks to do a recount, to essentially take out votes. And quite frankly, they're essentially they in fact, the Texas Supreme Court is essentially suppressing the vote. That's, as I said before, it's like a poll tax. So, because of all of this nonsense right now, I really think that the legal team and Jasmine Crockett's campaign should really consider advocating for a revote, complete revote in Dallas County. Either recount the whole county or really just hold, you know, allow Dallas County to revote. I don't know if that can be done. I don't know if that's possible. I don't think that the Republican-controlled states, the Republican-controlled courts in Texas are going to go for that. But I think it's worth a try. I think it's worth a try. I really don't think they're going to go for that, these courts. But listen, there is nothing wrong with the old college try, as it were. And I really, truly believe that it is worth a stretch. And I don't know what the Crockett folks are going to do. I don't have any kind of contact with them in any way, but I think it's worth a stretch. Al Gore was able to ask for recounts in these 2 or 3 counties in Florida. And I get it. That was a national race. I understand that. But these elections are done state by state. And I think that if they haven't considered this, the Crockett team, they really should consider, because there was this disenfranchisement, mass disenfranchisement of hundreds, if not, quite frankly, thousands of Dallas County voters. The Dallas County voters should be allowed to vote it, to revote. I But again, we know Texas is so dirty and racist as ass, and they are going to probably not do this, but I really think it's worth a stretch. I think there probably would be briefs by the ACLU, by the Pew Center for Research, for the Brennan Center as well. I think that they should file some briefs on this. It's this clear disenfranchisement. These are the 2 largest counties in the state. I honestly think, and let me tell you something. If Tallarico was in this position, I'd be backing his campaign to make a challenge as well. I wouldn't be backing his campaign, but I would be advising. I'd have the same opinion. I would have the same opinion. If it was the other way around, I would say Tallarico needs to make a legal challenge. The fact of the matter is that this stuff here was orchestrated and predictable. Um, they are scared of Jasmine Crockett. Listen, the bottom line, and this is more ancillary to my points tonight, and I promise not to keep you too much longer, but thank you very much for being here. Please hit the heart. Please subscribe to this Substack. I do appreciate you. Thank you very much. And again, please consider becoming a paid subscriber as well. That'd be greatly appreciated also. But I wanted to just say, the Democratic establishment stayed away from picking a winner here. They were in a bind. Because there's no secret there's people in the Democratic establishment and the National Dems who do not like Jasmine Crockett. And of course, I think we know why that is. Um, she wanted to be on the she wanted to have a role, I think, as the oversight chair or the oversight ranking member. The oversight ranking member, she lost out to Robert Garcia on that. She's really wanted to make a name and get herself in there, but she is on the oversight committee, I think, but she is not the oversight chair. The oversight, the ranking member, right? And then nobody wanted to say anything against Jasmine Crockett, but they didn't say anything in support of her. We all know that they don't like the black woman. They're just absolutely racist. That's what this is. They're mainstream Democrats, white establishment Democrats, who would rather Jasmine Crockett just go away. That's the truth. That's a fact. They just do not want a black woman anywhere near. They didn't want Vice President Harris anywhere near. in 2024, and they certainly didn't want Jasmine Crockett anywhere near in 2026. But what they did with Jasmine Crockett is they decided they just didn't want to put their thumb on the scale. But quietly, what was happening to Jasmine Crockett? She was getting hit with attack ads from the left and the right, these so-called white progressives who were attacking her on social media, were attacking her in attack ads. You have these PACs that were connected to James Tallarico who were hammering her. I mean, this is, the bottom line is that, hey, politics is dirty and PACs are going to do what they're going to do. It's not illegal because of the Supreme Court. It's not illegal for PACs to do this. But this notion that James Tallarico somehow was not running attack ads against Jasmine Crockett is just not true. He is connected, and there's documentation on this, to several PACs who are spending millions of dollars against Jasmine Crockett. And there were PACs attacking her from the left and the right. This is coordinated. So this notion that somehow this didn't happen is just not true. But the bottom line tonight, and it is early in the morning now, bottom line on this Wednesday morning, if you're on the East Coast, is that Jasmine Crockett has not conceded. That conceding or not conceding is really not relevant here, but no one has given a victory speech. No one has given a concession speech. And yes, we cannot forget, and I almost did, Tallarico making that mediocre black man comment about Colin Allred, who Colin Allred, of course, is going to be in a runoff tonight after what we saw with his race against Julie Johnson in the Texas House race, in the House of Representatives, the U.S. House of Representatives. Yeah, that Tallarico mediocre black man comment. Yeah, it shows you exactly where he stands. Exactly, vegan, no question. And as I was saying before, the Democratic establishment didn't want to get involved. But the bottom line is there are a lot of people on social media who got involved, and they have a right to go for who they want to go for. They have a right to go for who they want to, just like I have a right to go for Crockett. But you had people, the Terry Morans of the world, you had the Katie Courics of the world, you had, people going, ooh, Tallarico is, he's a seminary, and he's been to seminary, and he's this, and he's a man of faith. And they weren't telling you anything about his accomplishments, by the way. They were just telling you he was a man of faith, and he'd be a breath of fresh air. And he's white. I mean, really, that's really what they're saying to you, but we all can see that he's white. You had PACs running ads darkening Jasmine Crockett's face. PACs connected to Tallarico doing that, darkening the black woman's face. Ooh, she's supposed to be scary to white voters. And this is the deal. This is the racist ass moves that get made and the misogynistic moves that get made. But you had all these people, Tallarico would be a breath of fresh air. And the thing is that Tallarico has zero experience in the U.S. House of Representatives and in Congress, period. Why? Because he's never been to Congress. He is not a U.S. congressman. He is a Texas State House representative. And you would have thought that Tallarico was the best thing since sliced white bread, based on how these folks on Substack, people who have a lot more of a following than I do, were talking about him with no credentials, no experience, none. Breath of fresh air. That's white privilege. Breath of fresh air. He's not done a damn thing. In fact, one of his claims to fame was, if you remember this, last summer in Texas, when the Texas State House representatives left the state of Texas to stop Greg Abbott from getting a quorum in order to do the racist gerrymandering in the Texas State House. Tallarico left the state and held out for only 2 weeks before he and a lot of other Democratic moderates in the state of Texas went crawling back to the Texas State House so that the governor of the state, Greg Abbott, could do his racist gerrymander. Well, yeah. Tallarico ran back 2 weeks later, didn't hold out, didn't stop that quorum, didn't stop it. No. Oh, I'm gonna go right back to the Texas State House, and then they had the racist gerrymandering bill a few weeks after that. No, not a fighter. That is not a definition of a fighter for me. Now, I get it. People say that there's different ways to fight, but in this day and age, with fascism raging, we cannot afford to have moderates in the Democratic Party. We need fighters, and maybe I don't know all there is to know about James Tallarico, but some of his behavior doesn't sit good for me, and I'm a Crockett person. I will freely admit that. Crockett ran a very good campaign here. She went for her base. She did the thing that Democrats don't like to do. She courted black voters. Black voters are the base of the Democratic Party. Black voters by far, by not even close, it ain't even close. Black voters overwhelmingly vote Democratic. No other group votes as much Democratic as black people do. It's just not even close. Not even close. Male and female. Okay. This has been going on for decades. And the Democratic Party nationally ignores black voters, does not reach out to them in the ways that they should. They take us for granted. They do. Now, Jasmine Crockett did not make that mistake in her campaign. She went strong into black neighborhoods and Latino neighborhoods. And Latina voters were responding to her. That was her base, black people and Latinos, and Latinas especially. Black women, number one, black men, number two, and Latinas, number three. That's her base. She went unapologetically for that base. And right now it's a 5 or 6 or so percent race. We have a lot of votes still to count. This whole mess in Dallas County, Texas, still to be resolved. Okay. So really, that's really what you have to be left with here. To summarize again, there were 2 judges who made decisions in Texas on a Tuesday. One of them said that because of the confusion in Dallas County, where hundreds, if not thousands of voters were turned away from voting during the day because of that confusion, due to the Texas Republicans in Dallas County who said, no, you can't vote in this joint primary. We're not having a joint primary election. You're going to have to vote in your own precinct as opposed to voting anywhere in your county. Big difference. You disenfranchise tons of people when you tell them that they cannot vote in their county, county-wide in their county. They can't vote anywhere in their county. They have to vote in their precinct. And on a weekday, and when there's no election day holiday, which there should be in this country and in every state, that disenfranchises who? Predominantly black voters, predominantly brown voters, and white poor voters. That's your ball game right there. People being turned away, people being confused because they're getting confusing signals from the Republicans who are running these elections. And the initial judge said, because of all that confusion, we are going to keep Dallas County voting open until 9 p.m. Central. That's what Dallas County ruled. The judge ruled that. Then within an hour or so after that, Texas Supreme Court says, nope, no more voting allowed after 7 p.m. Central. And not only that, you're going to have to remove all of those voters who voted after 7 p.m. Central. Makes no sense at all, but it makes perfect sense because that's the history of Texas. That's the history of lots of states in this country. Many states outside of the South as well, who stopped black people from voting, that killed black people, that did all kinds of evils to us. And you're seeing it continue in Texas to this day and other states across the South and beyond. Vivian says this. Vivian writes, "We don't need any more moderate Democrats. We want action and real progressive leaders that tell it like it is," and that's Jasmine. Yes, yes, yes. Vivian, thank you for your comment there. I totally agree with you, Vivian. You cannot. I don't. You see, the establishment folk and these mainstreamers in corporate news media, and even on C-SPAN, which is not corporate, and even, and in places like here on Substack with some people, as I said, the Terry Morans of the world and the Katie Courics of the world, you know, they want the white male moderate. They don't want the black female progressive. They just don't. They don't want the black female fighter. You know, they don't. And it's purely along racial lines. I I want Jasmine Crockett to win because she's a fighter. She's a black woman. Yeah, great. I love it. Fantastic. Absolutely. She's a fighter. That's the key. And she has a track record. That's the key. And I'm proud of Jasmine Crockett. You know how many black female candidates have there been for United States Senate in Texas? How many black female US senators have there ever been? I can tell you. I can name them. Carol Mosey, Braun of Illinois, Kamala Harris, California, Angela Also Brooks of course, Maryland, and Lisa Blunt Rochester of Delaware. Those are the four. Now, there was a fifth one, but she was brought in on an interim basis here in California. I've forgotten her name all of a sudden. Begins with an L. You may remember that before the election for Adam Schiff happened, there was a black woman who served out the remainder of crikey, what is her name? She lives not far from here, and I'm still blanking on her name. Dianne Feinstein. Oh my God, to fill her seat because Dianne Feinstein, as you know, passed away. And so, and I'm trying to remember the sister's name, LaFonza Butler. LaFonza Butler, I think is her name. That's the black woman who was briefly in the U.S. Senate. So technically, there's been 5 black women ever who's ever been a United States senator. But again, LaFonza Butler was not elected to the U.S. Senate in California. Gavin Newsom, the governor of this state, appointed her to that seat to fill out the remaining term of the deceased Senator Dianne Feinstein. So really, there's only ever been 4 black women ever elected to the U.S. Senate in its history. There are not very many black female candidates for U.S. Senate in the history. Not many. Not many. And by the way, again, Jasmine Crockett, I cannot remember the last time a black woman ran for U.S. Senate in Texas. I literally can't remember. Doesn't mean it hasn't happened. I just don't remember when it's happened. I mean, Barbara Jordan may have run for U.S. Senate at one point many years ago. I'd have to check. I don't know. I know that she, of course, is part of the Texas 18th District, 18th Congressional District as a House member. But the bottom line is that you don't find too many. And thank you, Marnie, for confirming it. I figured it was LaFonza Butler. And again, I'm doing this from the top of my head. LaFonza Butler was the other black woman who was in the U.S. Senate. There's only ever been 5. She was appointed, not elected. The other 4 were all elected. Again, I'll go through their names. Carol Mosley Braun of Illinois. That was back in the 1990s. She was the first black woman ever to be in the U.S. Senate. Then it was Vice President Kamala Harris in the 2000s or 2010s. That was the second black woman ever here in California. Then, as I said, Angela Also Brooks of Maryland. That was in 2024, the same night as Vice President Harris's presidential election. And also on the same night also was Lisa Blunt Rochester of Delaware. Those are the 4 black women in the history of this country who were elected to the United States Senate. And the 5th black woman was LaFonza Butler, who was appointed by Gavin Newsom to fill out the remainder of Dianne Feinstein's term when she passed away. So, so that's the flavor of this. So yeah, I am rooting for Jasmine Crockett, and Jasmine Crockett's a fighter, and she's got character. This is a this is someone who has a lot of experience. She has 2 terms now in Congress, right? Now, someone's running for her seat now. So if Jasmine Crockett does not win this election, she will not be going back into the U.S. Congress. Keep that in mind. Freddie Haynes is running for her seat in the 30th Congressional District in Texas. Now, Freddie Haynes is a preacher. Freddie Haynes was, I think, a nominee at one point to be the head of the NAACP. He backed out of that when he was given that due to other commitments. So he ended up leaving that scenario, but he is now running for Jasmine Crockett's present seat. So I just want to remind you, this is so if this does not go Crockett's way, she will no longer be in Congress as of the beginning of 2027. All right. And Vegan states she has to run for governor. That may well be the next move. There is a primary, though, I forget when, for governor of the state of Texas, because the governor's race is this year in Texas. So would she run in that race is my question. I would imagine so. Because there is not a primary for Texas. I don't think there's a primary. I'm not sure if there is a primary for governor or not. But there might be in it. I mean, I don't know. I don't want to say that with Texas. As far as Texas is concerned, but there's definitely an election for Texas governor this year. This November. I think it's November 3rd is this year's midterm elections. So if this does not work out for Jasmine Crockett, I would imagine she will run for governor of Texas. However, she may also have her eyes on the White House as well. So you got to look at both of those things. There's a lot of people who are going to run on the Democratic side, obviously. And God knows if this orange filth decides to leave the White House, and that's definitely not a fait accompli at all, because I am not going to sit here and say that he will. But the bottom line is there's lots of people running on the Democratic side. You know, J.D. Vance is itching for the day that he can step into that seat. I think that Crockett would explore either option to run. I think for governor, it would probably be a little bit too close to run for governor of Texas if she doesn't. I mean, it's not impossible. You just have to build that apparatus for the statewide race. The question becomes if she runs for president. Well, there's not really a question. I mean, she obviously has to do what any candidate would do, which is she'd have to make a decision within, I think, the next few months and then just go for it. Vice President Harris, to me, is clearly running in 2028. She is continuing a book tour. Again, 107 days. Right? She's still doing this tour. And she was in Detroit over the weekend. She backed and endorsed Jasmine Crockett. Right? It was Vice President Harris who showed Crockett the ropes, or who advised her about Congress. It was Jasmine Crockett who spoke at the convention in 2024 on behalf of and supporting Vice President Harris. So conceivably, you could have a scenario. You could have a scenario where Jasmine Crockett runs for president. Possibly. It's possible. If she doesn't run for Texas governor, I think she'll run for president. I'm telling you, in my opinion, I think Vice President Harris is absolutely running right now. It's a total shadow run. And Marnie writes, I wondered if Harris would run again, ? And I think she definitely will, Marnie. I definitely think that's going to happen. And I'll tell you why. She's running right now. She has been on this book tour since September of last year. I attended her book tour when she came out here to San Francisco. She's actually going to be coming to Oakland, I think, this month, maybe this week even. I don't know. She's in Oakland, California, coming soon. She was in Detroit recently, visiting, I forget, either some schools or she was visiting some small businesses in Detroit on Saturday. Now, why would she be doing that? If she's not considering at the very least a run for president in 2028, why would she be visiting small businesses in Detroit? I mean, you might call it a prearranged engagement, but why would she be in Detroit? Why would she be in Oakland? Why would she be in all these cities still? Now in 2026, we're into the final month of the first quarter of the year, and Vice President Harris still has tour dates going on into April. You go and look on Ticketmaster right now if you don't believe me. Go to Ticketmaster.com and type in Kamala Harris. See the dates, at least into April, if not longer. You tell me that that's not a warm up for a presidential run in 2028. You tell me that. You tell me. She's running. I'm telling you. And let me tell you something else. There's no accident that the other person who's already clearly going to be running is Gavin Newsom. He's been basically running since 2023. Okay. Gavin Newsom, and I'm not one of his biggest fans. Um, he's done some things he's done positively here in California, and there's been a number of things he has not done positively here in California. He is against the billionaires tax that is being proposed for this state. He is against it. He has come out openly back in January of this year and fought it tooth and nail. I am not going to allow that to pass. That's Gavin Newsom, who I would not trust if you asked me to trust him. If you paid me to trust Gavin Newsom, I would not. I would absolutely not trust him. Now, the situation with Gavin Newsom is this. Having said that, I want to correct something for the record because a lot of people have fallen into this trap. Gavin Newsom, a few weeks ago, went to the Rialto Theater in Atlanta, Georgia. He was interviewed by the Atlanta mayor, Andre Givens or Gittens. I forget how you spell his last name. The Atlanta mayor is a black man, and Gavin Newsom talked about his dyslexia and scoring 960 on the SATs. And for some reason, and this was a right-wing BS move that spread across social media. Oh, he's a racist because he says something about black people. First of all, number one, he didn't say anything about black people. Second of all, there's that presumption, the racist presumption, oh, because he said he didn't do well in the SATs, he's referring to black people. So now you're already going with some racist assumption that black people aren't smart. Why would he have to be referring to black people if he's talking about how he scored only 960 on the SATs? Number two. Number three, Atlanta is not predominantly black anymore. It's around 45% black now. Number four, that audience that he spoke to at Rialto Theater was a majority white audience. It was a diverse audience, but majority white. So it's very important, and this is part of what I've written about on my Substack, and please subscribe to my Substack. I wrote last week about discernment, to be discerning, to have discernment, to carefully analyze and ask yourself questions when you read information and you see stuff on social media. Don't just jump at the first thing you see. You have to analyze this stuff, think about it, engage in critical thinking. Because that was a right-wing BS meme. And everybody was sucking it up and believing it, including lots of people who say they are progressives, who say they are Democrats. They're all believing it. They didn't have any evidence. They didn't see the crowds. They didn't see the crowd size. They didn't know anything about Atlanta. They all jumped with it and assumed, oh, he was racist. What did he say that was racist? And did anybody actually watch the whole video of that interview? No. You know that hardly anybody watched the entirety of that video. They looked at, what do they do? A 20-second clip, like everybody does on social media, plaster a 20-second clip out of context and try to make something of it instead of inviting people to watch the entire damn thing like I did. And if you didn't want to watch the entire thing, you could have watched 7 minutes of it. And if you watch the 7 minutes, what that question was and how he answered it in 7 minutes, you got a full picture of what he said. Nothing about black people. There was nothing racist. But the right wing is able to get many people, and some of us, fooled, duped, schooled, people who have large platforms falling for this stuff. I saw people on some social media platforms who were asking, do you think Gavin Newsom's racist or not? And it's like they didn't even have the full information. A simple YouTube search for the whole event would have revealed that the event was A, not all black, B, Atlanta's not is not majority black, and C, it was a mostly white crowd. It's just crazy. And having said all of that too, if Newsom's the nominee, listen, if he turns out to be the Democratic nominee, will I vote for him? Of course I will. And we can't afford to have purity tests. We can't afford it. And Monty says, I didn't see any of the interview. Yeah, Monty, you're not alone. Lots of people didn't. Lots of people didn't. And that's why I call for an age of discernment, because we cannot just jump to something. Because I'm not saying this of you, Monty. I'm speaking generally. And I'm not saying this about anybody. But I'm just saying this in general to everybody. We cannot jump to conclusions just because some right winger spread a meme and it just spreads all over the place. No one knows where it came from. No one looked at the video. No one looked at the interview. Nobody bothered to do a search of the interview to find out, oh, what happened here? They just look at a clip and they run with it. It's like when people quote stuff on social media or quote a story, they put a screenshot to the story, but they don't put a link to the whole story. They just put a screenshot and then just say what they want to say, taking something out of context potentially. If you give your followers the whole link, then they can decide whether they want to click on that link and read the whole story that you got your little screenshot out of. But we do this all the time now. Too many people with much larger platforms than me or you, do this as well. They put a little screenshot there, and many of them don't put a link to the whole story. So you don't know where that screenshot was. That screenshot could have been from 20 years ago. You have no idea what it's referring to. And we do that so often now on social media. And all this technology, it blunts our thinking and our process. Our investigatory process, and I've talked about this before, is blunted because we jump to conclusions. We want to be first. We want to be first. We want to get all the retweets and all the likes and all the rest, but we are not necessarily, many of us, doing the thinking and the investigation that we have to do, because AI, as Vegan points out there, as AI completely blunts the process, and all this automation does, and the race to be fair. It's like you have to do the careful analysis to be discerning. It's really important because this calendar year, with these elections, this is going to happen a lot. All the disinformation, we are, as I have always said, often said, we are in a disinformation age now. AI, deep fakes, disinformation age. People lying on social media, people spreading confusion, disinformation age. And how do you beat that? With facts. How do you beat that? With discernment. How do you do that? Careful, critical thinking. That's what we need. Cannot just jump to conclusions because there's some rumor. Oh, Newsom said something. So I can correct the record about Newsom even if I don't like him particularly. You know? I mean, what's right is right and what's wrong is wrong. If he didn't say anything racist, and I know he didn't, then I'm going to speak out and say he didn't. If he didn't say anything sexist and he was accused of that, or anyone else, I would do the same. At least on the certainly people that look who are going to be around for the Democrats. Listen, Newsom's going to run. We all know that's the worst kept secret in the world, right? Right. Other than the other kept secret in the world regarding the Orange Menace, um, Vice President Harris is going to run. You know, these two California politicians are definitely going to run. Shapiro is definitely going to run. All these people are going to run in 2028. You know, Buttigieg is going to mostly likely going to run. A load of people will, but look, 2028 is still pretty far down the road. We have to concentrate on these midterms. We have to. And so, again, I want to say this. I know I've kept you way too long. Please subscribe to this Substack. Please become a paid subscriber if you can. It would be greatly appreciated. And again, thank you for your time. Remember, Jasmine Crockett is not finished here. There's still votes to count. We will find out if there's anything else that Jasmine Crockett is going to be saying. Stay tuned on Wednesday for any statements that she may be making, for any statements at all that she may be making. Because I'll be keeping my eyes open for that. The bottom line is that there's still a lot of voting to be counted. Yes, if you do still watch social media, I mean, if you do still watch the corporate news media, and I hope you don't, but if you do still watch MSNBC or MS Now or whatever it's called, or any, I don't really watch those. I don't watch those at all. But if you are someone who still does, take what some of these pundits are saying with a pinch of salt. If they're telling you, oh, Jasmine Crockett's over with, she's done, or oh, Tallarico is going to win, not yet. That's not confirmed by a long shot. The Associated Press, as of right now, has not called that race because of what is going on in Dallas County, as I've said. So we will see what happens with Dallas County. You know, we will see. We will see. There's a lot of things about these candidates. I'll talk about the presidential candidates as we get closer. I'll talk about it, but this year is the time to really. And I know I mentioned it because I talked about Vice President Harris because I do think she really will run in 2028. She does. Look, the bottom line is the reason why I think she'll run is because I think she senses that there's unfinished business about 2024. She didn't have a long enough runway in 2024. She only had 107 days. A load of people in the establishment stiffed her, including, quite frankly, President Joe Biden at the time. Some people within his inner circle stiffed her as well. You know, she just didn't have a long enough runway to do this, and yet she came so close. But the bottom line is that these midterms are everything. And I know that the No King's March is coming on the 28th of this month, but please do not wait until the 28th of March to do something. We have more power than we think. You have more power than you think. And you have to engage. You have to stay focused, all right? You have to engage in self-care and mental health as well. You have to engage. You have to call your elected officials, local and state. The phone numbers on the federal level, 202-225-3121 or 202-224-3121. In the last live I did, I forgot to actually verbalize those phone numbers. Those two numbers are the DC Congressional Switchboard. They will, you can ask for the House member or the Senate member you want to talk to. Of course, there's lots of issues to engage with them on. We've got an illegal war that's being waged right now by the Orange Menace. You need to be calling your congressperson and your two senators and let them know what you think. You have to. Let them know. You had Senator Blumenthal tonight or yesterday saying, hey, I'm terrified about what can happen next is because they're not ruling out boots on the ground. So we have plenty to engage on, right? And, we have to have a plan to vote. I think no matter what happens in Dallas County, We need to have a plan to vote beforehand in all of these states, whichever state we're in, of course, it's only that you can only vote in your own state, obviously. But in whichever state you're in, you've got to have a plan to vote beforehand. Do not wait until the midterm election to figure out what you're doing. Be aware of the rules, have phone numbers for the county elections that whichever county you're in whichever state you're in, be aware of what those rules are. Have contact with these people, find out what their phone numbers are so that you know. Because if they pull any tricks on you, you'll be aware of it. And you need to check your voter registration at least twice a month so that if there's an issue with your voting registration in March of 2026, where we are now, you have enough time to get that fixed. So these are very important things that we can do. Okay. We have to stay engaged. Do not be discouraged, right? There is a great website, exactly vegan, called Ballotopedia. Yeah, that there's also one called Bolts mag. If you type in your search engine BOLTS space mag and maybe space voting, they do an excellent job. Their website has an excellent tally of all the races, when they're being done, what dates, everything. Ballotopedia is also a very good source as well. I will post these sources actually on my Substack after I conclude here, which will be very shortly, I promise. Um, but all of these people, again, you'll probably read the publications that you read, and a lot of them will be ballyhooing Tallarico. Um, but listen, that race is not over yet. Okay, so keep that in mind. And many of these folks who are ballyhooing Tallarico as if it's all over and done with, as if it's done and dusted, are not talking about what's happened in Dallas County. They're not talking about the voter suppression of black and brown people in Dallas County. They're not, because they have another agenda. If you are a pundit or an actual journalist, you would be, if you really cared, then you would be talking about the voter suppression. It may well be boltsmag.org, but I'm definitely, whichever it is, it definitely talks about politics, news, and voting, whichever that site is. I'm definitely going to post those actual sites on my Substack, certainly, after I finish this. But again, folks, try not to please don't give up on Jasmine Crockett. She's a fighter, you know? And yes, the pundits are going to be going, yeah, 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 yeah. That's what they're going to do. That's what they're paid to do, and they're going to talk their talk, and they've got their agenda, and they're going to sit there and say that it's over, and Tallarico would be a great competition. He would offer great competition for the Republicans, and there's real hope. I mean, that's their agenda because they're pushing Tallarico, obviously. You don't hear anybody on those stations that you're watching pushing Jasmine Crockett. If you watch those stations that you watch, you can't name me a person that you've seen on those stations that you may still watch that are pushing Jasmine Crockett. You can't name him. And that's very deliberate. That is very deliberate. That is not by accident. That you, in watching the news diet or reading the news diet that you read, have not come across anybody championing Jasmine Crockett. Nobody's talking about her 3.5 years or so experience in the Congress. Nobody is. Why not? They don't want the black woman there. If this were the other way around, if this were the other way around, and James Tallarico was in the Congress, had 3 years of experience, and Jasmine Crockett was the one who was the moderate, who was the seminary student, and who, went to seminary and guarantee you, they wouldn't be talking about, oh, Jasmine Crockett's a breath of fresh air. She went to seminary. They'd be talking about the experience of James Tallarico. That's what they'd be talking about. But this is how white privilege works, and this is how whiteness works. Oh, let's talk about this mythical great white hope. He's a nice guy, and he has no experience, but let's just talk about his faith. He's a man of faith. I understand that people vote on those kinds of reasons. But in this climate, with these fascists, you don't need Bible thumping moderates. You need a fighter, unapologetic fighter. Donald Trump is unapologetic about what he's doing. How the hell do you want, how does anybody want a moderate in these times? I don't care which state you live in. How the hell do you want any moderate Democrat in these times of fascism? How can you afford to be going for moderation? I mean, I hate this term, the Overton window. It is a real term. You know, I tried to get away from these labels. Overton. I understand, yes, that term exists. But this shifting ever more to the right, which is really what the Overton window does, right? Shifting over to the right. So we're moving more from the center over to the right, to the right, to the right. And then a moderate? No, that's not what we need. We've gone as right as we can possibly freaking go. We need to have a radical change. And that's what happens when you vote for moderates. You usually lose. That happens. It's not true all the time. But if it's between a moderate and a Republican, the Republican prevails. Harry Truman spoke about this back in the 1950s. If you had to choose between a real Republican and a fake Republican, voters would choose the real Republican every day, any day, all the time. Paraphrasing Harry Truman, give him hell, Harry. By the way, the same Harry Truman that dropped nuclear bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. That's what he said back in the 50s. If it came down to having a fake Republican and a real Republican, voters would choose the real Republican every time. You need to have a fighter, someone who galvanizes and energizes your voting base. And the reason, in my view, why there was record turnout in early voting was down to Jasmine Crockett and the energy and enthusiasm and passion she brought to this race. Democrats in Texas outvoted Republicans in Texas by at least 45,000 votes. And there was a record the early voting in Texas for the Democrats was a record vote. And that's because Jasmine Crockett energized the base. Jasmine Crockett went to her base. She didn't try what Tallarico's doing, appealing to Republicans. She didn't do that. She totally didn't. She trusted in her base. And any Republicans that decided to cross over and vote for her, fine. But she wasn't going out there courting them. Harris made that mistake in 2024, courting Republicans. Democrats make that mistake often, courting Republicans who aren't going to vote for them en masse. Not even 3 or 4% of them are going to vote for Democrats. But yet, there are these white consultants who make these decisions in New York and in other parts in D.C., who make these decisions to tell these candidates, you need to go after Republicans. Why? It's a losing strategy. Now, listen, Crockett may win, Crockett may lose. Right now, she's trailing. But I'd rather Crockett do what she's doing and lose than play the same game the Democrats have played forever. And you have to go with your base that brought you to the dance. This worked for Doug Jones in Alabama several years ago when white man running in Alabama for Senate, U.S. Senate, went to a black voting base. He courted black women aggressively, and that got him over the line narrowly, albeit over the alleged pederast Roy Moore. Remember that from a few years ago? He beat Roy Moore by barely a percentage point. Doug Jones did that by going into black voter districts across Alabama, made ads with black women and black men, vote and spoke at their forums, went to them, court us, treat us like you care. And black voters responded, especially black women, as black women do time after time. So Jasmine Crockett's strategy is the right strategy. The wrong strategy was what the Texas Republicans did on Tuesday, which was to vote suppress black and brown voters in Dallas County. Now, see, you look in your sources of choice, the news you like to read and digest, look and see if you see on Wednesday any stories, any real stories about voter suppression in Dallas County. I want you to go and monitor your media, the media that you watch and read, and let's see. And I want you to see if there's any stories about the voter suppression in Dallas County. I will bet you the stories will not be plentiful. I will not be at all surprised if the stories are very minimal. C-SPAN didn't say anything about it last night. And C-SPAN's supposed to be neutral. You didn't hear any. I watched 3 hours of C-SPAN coverage. Not a thing said about voter suppression, except for when they showed the speech that Jasmine Crockett gave. So, that's the story, folks. And lastly, one other thing I want to say, I promise I'll let you go. We have to stop this really bad habit amongst us of thinking left versus right. We have to start thinking in what is right and what is wrong, what is humane and what is inhumane. Let's get out of this partisan thinking. I know it's a very partisan atmosphere, but that has got us all in this left v right thing. Yes, Republicans are dirtbags. Yes, I get it. They are. And we need to vote them out. But that doesn't mean we have to always have a left versus right mentality. And it also doesn't mean that we should just throw away Democrats because they do one thing wrong that we don't like. I've noticed this a lot. This is the last thing I'll say. This is a really bad habit amongst some of us. We will absolutely castigate a Democrat who does one thing wrong. And that Democrat may have been great for the 90% of the time, but one thing wrong, and we throw that Democrat and discard him. But when a Republican does one thing right, there are many of us who champion that Republican as if they're a hero. Never mind the fact that they've done 90% of things against our interests. Why is that? Why is it that some of us do that? I'm not necessarily looking for an answer. I'm kind of putting this out there as a rhetorical question. Why is it that some of us are so quick to champion the Republican who does one thing right? Case in point, a Thomas Massey. Case in point, an MTG. Case in point, a Tom Tillis, who absolutely scorched the earth yesterday with the questioning of the puppy killer. But these folks all vote with Trump more than 95% of the time. Why are we so quick to jump up and down when the Republican does one thing right? But when the Democrat who votes with what the values that we align ourselves with, more than 99% of the time, does one thing wrong, we're ready to completely discard them, met some of us. Why is that? I've never understood that. Again, I'm not looking for an answer to that. I just want you to think about that. Why is that happening? And what does that mean about us? And what does that say about us? If we're willing to embrace a Republican on one thing that they do correct, but ready to discard a Democrat because they've done one thing wrong, what does that tell us about where we are shifting in our mindsets? What does that tell us? And I've made this point previously on a number of occasions on my podcast as well, and here, but I'm going to continue to make it, because it's a really problematic thing. I see a lot of people on this platform always playing right-wing clips. Why? 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 If a right winger says something that we might agree with as human beings, why do we have to always play their clip? Why not a clip of someone who's progressive? or who just, why not? Why is there not that kind of thing? We're always some of us are playing on this platform who have larger platforms than I do, much larger, playing these right-wing clips all the time. Why? Yeah, I totally agree with that, M. Hope. Here on Substack, M. Hope writes, people are promoting some previous Republicans that are racist. I don't think they hear it, question mark. I guess these are responses to the why is that some of us do these things. But no, I know that definitely does happen. And I agree, M. Hope. That does happen. You have people who do promote these people. And whether they do it deliberately or not, to me, and I'm not speaking on what you said because you're not saying this, I'm just saying this more generally now. Whether the people who promote them are doing it deliberately or not, to me, doesn't matter so much. Um, it matters that they're doing it at all. Whether they're doing it for some reason or whether they're not doing it for that reason. I just don't like it. I think it's, dare I say, dangerous. That's why I keep talking about discernment, being very careful about information that you're getting and be aware of what the sources are. Do the check, please. We all have to be journalists in our own right. In an era where journalism is being attacked and some journalists are just totally not doing their jobs and media companies totally capitulating, we have to be our own journalists. We have to be discerning. We have to be careful. We have to check. We have to look. Don't just jump to anything that you see online. If there's a video clip, think about, is there a longer version of it? Is this whole thing on YouTube? Is there more of this clip that I can see? Is there news stories on it? Don't just go for someone because someone posts a clip of 10 seconds soundbite material, but you don't know what the full quote is. I mean, we really have to retrain our brains to become deep, more and now analytic thinkers and much more process oriented and critical thinking people, because I think we've lost a lot of that. Critical thinking in America has gone down the tubes a long time ago. Yeah, look what happened to Al Franken. Yeah, that's a great point, Marnie. Marnie writes, look what happened to Al Franken. This is in response to what I was saying earlier about why some people decide to throw away a Democrat on one issue. And listen, granted, what Al Franken was accused of certainly is not, certainly is, um, that's just certainly a horrible thing. But there was no proof, right? No proof at all that Al Franken did any of these things. And a lot of these things, quite frankly, um, no proof on. And not nearly as serious as what we're seeing with the Epstein files. Not even close. I mean, I'm not dismissing the things that Al Franken was accused of, but there was no proof. And yet every Democrat in the US Senate came out against him. Every one of them. Every single one of them. And he was gone. Had to leave the Senate. Guy was a progressive. It was someone who was a fighter. Gone. Absolutely gone. And then there were lots of us saying he should go. Some of us said he shouldn't go. Some of us did. That's a good point, Marnie, about Franken. That's a good one. But we have a bad habit, some of us. And again, I'm not saying everybody who's watching this, but there are a number of us who go on these platforms, and I don't know whether they're bots or trolls or people who genuinely feel this way, real people. But I don't understand where that mentality is. And also, I don't understand the mentality that says, oh, you know, if I can't have my candidate, I'm not going to vote at all. I'm going to vote for Jill Stein. I'll vote third party. Why? Why? Why are some of us like that? I mean, people have the right to do what they want with their vote, but treat your vote seriously, please. I know that sounds like whatever it sounds like. But we have to stop this mentality. That's a mentality we also have to break out of. Looking for the perfect candidate. And then you jump up and down, some of us, when Marjorie Taylor Greene stands up for the Epstein files. Well, dude, that's something that anybody should be standing up and supporting release of. That's not some courageous thing. Oh, she was courageous because she stood up against Trump and went to vote for the Epstein files release. Really? There's no courage in there. That's not courage. That's about your morals and your values. That's not about having any courage. That's not. It's not courageous for Tom Massey to do that. That's what anybody should do. That's not something courageous, but that's because we are so shifted in this left versus right thinking all the time. And yet we still throw away that Democrat because they may have done one thing that's objectionable or wrong. Look at the voting records of these people, please. People spread lies about Jasmine Crockett. The amount of people on this here platform who were saying lies about Jasmine Crockett. I don't care. Maybe I don't care if they were paid, if they were bots, trolls, or people who were just racist or just didn't like Crockett and like Tallarico, whoever they were. But that was happening on here. I had to correct a load of people. And all you have to do is go to this is why I say the age of discernment is important. All you have to do is go on opensecrets.org and look at who's contributing money to whom. It's very easy. I'll put that on my Substack here as well at the end. All of these comments about all these lies about Crockett that were being spread, it's deliberate, of course. It's just crazy. This whole thing. We have to stop this mentality of you know, exalting Republicans because they've said one thing correct, but because Tom Tillis on Tuesday just absolutely went to town on the puppy killer during that hearing. Everybody's applauding him. You heard the applause in during his statement. He said, "I don't want your applause. I'm glad he did what he should have done when he was still running for Senate. But why didn't he do any of this before?" And not only that, he votes with Trump 90 some odd percent of the time. He's no hero. And as Adam writes, yeah, look at how Romney was treated as an American hero just because he said a few unflattering things about George Santos, and Donald Trump. Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's just a horrible habit. People exalted Romney when he voted to convict Donald Trump in the first and second impeachment trials. I mean, there was so much news coverage. Oh, Romney stood up to his party. Like, dude, it's not about standing up to your party. It's about right and wrong, not left and right. That's my point. Thank you, everybody, for watching. I know it's been longer than I wanted it to. Yep, Liz Cheney got exalted too. Exactly. The same thing with Liz Cheney. All of these people were just sitting there toasting Liz Cheney, toasting Dick Cheney because, yeah, he's voting for Vice President Harris. And I mean, yes, and we know that Dick Cheney has since passed away. But yeah, all of this exaltation of the Cheneys, all of a sudden, I mean, come on. Liz Cheney, who famously came out against her own sister when her sister came out of the closet and said that she was gay, Mary Cheney. I mean, everybody forgot that already. George W. Bush, when, people waxing nostalgic for George W. Bush, a war criminal, really? See, that's where, if you think left and right, that's where the issue is. If you want to exalt a Republican because a Republican says one thing that makes sense, of the 99% of things they say and do that are injurious to all of us, then there's something wrong with the thinking that's going on with you. If you're a person who is willing to toast people like Liz Cheney or toast people like Dick Cheney or toast people like George W. Bush because the guy in the White House now is horrible. So it's like, oh, we would love. I heard nonsense like that on this platform. Oh, I'd love to go back to George Bush. Would you? I would be happier if George Bush was in the White House instead. Really? But that's the thinking, that we need to crush that kind of nonsense. Adam Kinzinger as well, all of them. I mean, they all now become so cuddly and cozy to us. Not to me. Doesn't mean I can't listen to what they have to say, but I keep in mind that these people vote against our interests. And we have to stop getting in this left and right and look at the facts of what's going on and stop exalting these Republicans because they do one thing correct. I mean, my God, the baseline, that's the baseline. And then when the Democrat does one thing wrong, we want to throw them overboard. We have to stop that mentality. We really have to. Some of us, the people who do this, whomever they are, maybe it's someone watching this right now, maybe it's you, maybe it's someone else, maybe it's someone you know. But this is not the way to be thinking. You cannot be thinking just because they say something one thing you agree with, that they now should be put on a pedestal. And then the Democrat who says one thing you disagree with or two things, you now kick him to the curb. I mean, that's just crazy. We have to stop thinking in that very rightward way about things. We have to stop that because it's really not good. It's not smart and it's not good. And we have to be much, much more discerning. Thank you very much, everyone, for watching. Please do subscribe to this Substack that you're watching. Please subscribe to my Substack. I'd appreciate it very much. Please become a paid subscriber as well, if you can. I greatly appreciate that. You get a lot of extras and a lot of things with a paid subscription. So please oblige if you can with that. Be greatly appreciated. Thank you very much for your time tonight, or early tomorrow morning, since it's now Wednesday, except for here on the West Coast. But thanks again for watching. Please do come back and remember to listen to the Politicrat podcast as well. Take care, everyone. Thank you very much, everyone. And remember, keep going, keep fighting. You've got more power than you think you have. And remember, tough times don't last. Tough people like you do. Have a good night, everyone. See you again soon. Take care.